What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Counterculture Podcast. I'm here with my husband and co host, Grant.
Hey, guys.
And today we're going to be talking about marriage advice. So, we just celebrated our 4th year of marriage,
Sure did.
our 4th wedding anniversary. I cannot believe it's been that long, but
I know.
I think within these last 4 years, we've definitely learned a lot through marriage and just some advice that we would give someone who's maybe just getting married or just got engaged or whatever it is. So,
Mhm.
let's just get started.
Sounds great. I'm excited. Happy
So,
4-year anniversary, by the way.
thank you. You
Today is
too,
not our
baby.
anniversary, but
I know, we're actually filming this on Valentine's Day, so it's kind of just
it's true.
love is in
Still
the
kind of the
air.
whole same theme.
Yeah, we got married January 29th, so
Mhm.
pretty much in February. What's the number one thing you think you've learned in our marriage that you would maybe, like, tell other people, I guess?
I would say the most important thing that I have learned personally is just how important it is to be intentional in everything that you do.
It's good.
Whether that's, being the spiritual leader or just, how you celebrate her birthday, how you celebrate holidays, being intentional.
Mhm.
Don't don't act like, "Well, I've been married for 4 years now, or just going through the motions." Try to make it special and try to do things to the best of your ability in every area.
Yeah, that's
That's what I
good.
would say.
That's good.
What about you?
I think for me, the biggest thing that I've learned in our marriage specifically, and what I would tell other couples, is how different communication is
Mhm.
between men and women. Yeah, just how different we communicate and how different it affects us. That's something that I really didn't understand when we first got married, just how different like men and women are in that.
Yeah.
But if you can learn that quickly, then I think it will help a lot.
Mhm.
For instance, as women, we love to communicate. It relieves stress for us,
Right.
it makes our lives easier. And for men, it's the complete opposite.
Mhm.
So, like, when we are communicating, I think when there is a disagreement or something we're trying to figure out, the more I can talk about it and kind of just solidify everything, it's just like the problem disappears for me. But
Mm.
I think for you, the more we talk about it, I've learned it just stresses you
It
out.
just makes it such a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not avoiding the problem.
No, no.
I just don't feel the need to talk about it for 3 hours.
Right.
And so you're over there
With like a spreadsheet
you're
and
over
like,
there, like, just, like, taking things out of your backpack,
yeah,
and I'm just over here just, like, getting them forced into my backpack,
yeah,
and I was like, "I've already got them. I just don't wanna talk about it."
yeah.
So but it's important as the man to let your wife talk about it so that she feels like you do have it. Because I notice something that I do a lot. I will come to a conclusion in my subconscious, and it's like so far in my subconscious that I don't even realize that I've had a mindset change.
Mhm.
A week and a half later, she's like, "Hey, did we ever decide what we were gonna do about this?" Oh, like, "Oh yeah, it's done." She's like, "What are you talking about? We never talked about it." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I made that decision up in my head and thought that we had talked about it." And like, my point is, make sure you're just talking about everything with your spouse. Don't
Mhm.
assume anything.
And so we just had to learn to communicate and just but the biggest difference is I really don't think it's a personality thing. It's the difference between men and women. It's the way the Lord made us. It's the way that it's meant to be. And so there's nothing you can like fix about it. Just learning the differences and then caring enough to maybe, find that compromise.
Mm,
Because I think a lot of people want to change each other. They want to change their spouse. Men and women are just like like literally opposites.
mhm.
And I think I learned that in our marriage too. It's just like we are complete opposites, but it's not our personalities. Our personalities are very much alike.
Yeah.
But the way we function, what we enjoy and not, like it's just the way that men and women are built. And
Yeah.
so it's a good thing. It's something that you should look at and say, okay, I need to learn to compromise in this area instead. And so the next piece of advice I want to give is don't mention like life changes or big conversations until you've eaten or at the end of the
It's
day.
true.
It really is how men are wired. It's just like they work all day, they need a good meal, and then they can, like, have a conversation. It doesn't really come easily for men. So, whereas for me, I'm like, "I need to talk about this," and then I can enjoy, cooking and, like, all my daily things. It's just the opposite for a man. So, if you can cook a meal and have that ready, and you have a good meal together, and then after dinner, have a conversation, I
Mhm.
think that goes so much smoother,
Yeah,
and
maybe
I
so.
can just see that it's easier for you. Would you
Yeah.
agree?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know that I've ever noticed.
Right.
I think you do these things without me really
I do.
noticing it, but
Yeah.
I would agree. Going back to what I was saying about communicating and, like, not assuming anything, I think a better way of saying that is just to over communicate.
Mhm.
just over communicate everything just to make sure you're not giving the enemy the opportunity to get in your spouse's ear and say like, "Oh, he's doing this, she's doing that." Just be sure that you're on the same page, and it
Mhm.
solves a lot of problems.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And also just when you're talking about it, it feels like you're being proactive in fixing something.
Yeah.
So I feel like for women, maybe this is just a girl thing. But when you don't talk about it, it just seems like it's not really, nothing's really being done. You're just, nothing's getting fixed and you're just going to fall back into the same routine. But I think that when you talk about it, it solidifies like, this is what I'm doing. We're still on the same page. Nothing has changed, that kind of thing. Yeah, the next thing I'll say is this is just a piece of advice from us. This is not like what I would recommend because everyone is so different
Mhm.
and that's a good thing. But I think for us, one thing that we really enjoyed and have still enjoyed is having the first few years of marriage just to ourselves and not having kids so early. And
Yeah.
obviously, again, I will say, I mean, I can't say it enough that it's so different for everyone. And you can't control sometimes like when you have kids, whatever.
Right.
The Lord, you're supposed to have the amount of kids you're supposed to have and when you're supposed to have them. But for us, we really did just want to enjoy like our first few years of marriage. And we understood that once you do have kids, you'll never get those years back until
Right.
like your kids are out of the house. And even then the dynamic changes because you've lived together for 20 some years.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's so special though to just learn how to do life, just like give it the first year or 2, I think, is so
Mhm.
special to just enjoy with your spouse, especially if you're young. And, we met when we were 18, we got married at 21, and so we really didn't know each other, we were so young. We were our first each other's first relationship, and so I think that has been, like, the best thing for us is to just learn life, what we want out of life, and just taking our time through each and every stage.
Yeah.
This society, this culture, like, rushes everything,
Mhm.
and that's something that we've learned is the culture today, I mean, they just push the next step like crazy. I don't know if you experienced it, but me as a girl, as soon as I met Grant and we started dating, it was, "When are you gonna get married?" This and that. As soon as we got engaged, it was, "So when's the wedding day?" Like, on our engagement day, everyone's, "When's the
Mhm.
wedding? How long are you gonna wait?" Like, all the details, and I'm like, "I just got en like, we just got engaged. Let
Right.
me just enjoy this however long it's gonna be." We hadn't talked about that. We didn't know when we were getting married. And then, like, on our wedding day, it was, "So how many kids you're gonna have? When are you gonna have kids? Come on, like, tell me." And I'm just like, "I just got married. We haven't even talked about kids yet," you know?
Yeah.
And it's just it's not a good thing when you're rushing each step because you really don't get to soak it in and enjoy it. And so, if you can just ignore people and ignore the comments and the questions, I think it's just so much more enjoyable to say, "I don't know, it's up to the Lord. We'll talk about it. It's private between me and my spouse." I don't feel
Yeah.
the need to have to tell people like, "This is how long we're going to wait until we get engaged and this is how long we're going to wait to have kids." And I do talk about it now, but it's nothing that I can say like, "Oh, 2027," you know? It's more of whenever the Lord tells us.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think if you can just enjoy every stage, it will be so much easier, and I think that we learned again, the society pushes it like once you get married, your life is over. But really, it's like this is the beginning. And so when you rush into having kids, it's like you didn't really build that foundation of marriage. And it might be a little bit more difficult. I think it's
Right.
always a blessing. Kids are a blessing from the Lord and have as many, the Lord says to be fruitful and multiply, and kids are a blessing. And so we
Right.
want a lot of kids, but in the Lord's timing. And I think
Totally.
that, we're so grateful that the Lord has we just haven't felt that push to have children yet, and I think because of that, we've been able to build a good foundation. I think that it is up to what the Lord is telling you, everyone's different, but if you can build that foundation and maybe it only takes you 6 months of marriage, I just think to focus on your marriage
Yeah.
after getting married and just enjoy those years
Mhm.
or those months just without kids yet,
Yeah.
and
There's
it
so
helps
many
a lot.
factors that go into that too. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, if you're getting married at 35,
Mhm.
maybe it's your second marriage. Maybe you just know what you want at that point. It's going to be different for everybody. And also,
Absolutely.
God's timing is perfect.
Yeah, and more just speaking from our experience, something that we've enjoyed is
Totally.
waiting.
Right.
But yeah,
It's not like it's a
absolutely.
biblical thing,
No, not
it's
at all.
just our preferences, I guess.
Yeah. It's something that I've enjoyed and, um but yeah, some people get married and know they just want kids right away, and that's
Mhm.
great, but
Yeah.
I do think that it helps a lot in a lot of areas to be able to learn life with your spouse. Just like even I would say just 1 year. Go through every single holiday, birthdays, every tradition just with your spouse, like just once. And I think that if you can learn and just learn a routine almost before you bring kids into the relationship, I think it helps a lot.
Yeah. Obviously, that's how we feel about it. But honestly, I think as a culture, it would really serve us well to slow down in some of these areas.
Yeah.
I mean, even from a young age, as a kid, I can remember, April or May would come around, and I'm like, oh, I'm turning 11 in 2 months. I'm turning 11 in 1 month. I'm turning 11 in 3 weeks, 2 days, tomorrow. And then
Mhm.
even the day of, it's like, oh, I get to open presents at 6:30. And all these things, and you're just like, and then your parents would say, hey, don't waste your life away, and they're right.
Mhm.
That's why I'm trying to be ultra intentional with every day,
Mhm.
not even every season, but with every day.
Yeah.
This is a slightly pessimistic view of the world, but it does work for some people, so I'm going to share it here. It's a quote that I heard the other day, and it goes something like this: if you start seeing today as one less day instead of one more day, you will instantly prioritize it more. And
That's
I think there's
good.
a lot of truth in that. We're not here on earth forever. We're not going to be here alive forever. We have a limited amount of time. The Bible says we are like the dust, the chaff that the wind blows away.
Mhm.
We're a flower quickly fading, here today and gone tomorrow. We need to be really intentional with everything that we do every
Mhm.
day. That little quote has helped me, even though it's pessimistic. I don't really see it that way. It sounds pessimistic to say it, but I don't see it that way. I just see it as like, hey, man, you're here for a reason. This is not an accident. It's not a big bang. You didn't come from monkeys. It's not an accident. Okay. You're here for a reason. You were created for a reason. So, what are you doing today to further that cause?
Mhm.
What are you doing today to provide, protect, lead your family, your wife, your kids? That's why I feel like it's good to just take a step back, slow down, focus on what you want to accomplish, and don't wish your life away to the next season.
Mhm.
Like, when's the wedding? When are kids coming?
Exactly.
Can't wait to have a 6 bedroom home. Just take a deep breath and just keep on trucking right where you're
Yeah,
at. It's
for
like that
sure.
country song talking about you're gonna miss this.
Mhm.
She's in grade school and she's like, I just can't wait to have my own money, my own things. I can make my own money, I can make my own rules. And her mom's like, you're gonna miss this. And we all know that she's right.
Mhm.
And then the next step, they're in a little 2 bedroom apartment. She's talking about having babies and having a house, and her dad's like, you're gonna miss this. And I know we can speak from experience. We loved our first apartment.
For sure.
We lived in a little tiny 315 square feet studio apartment in the loft of a barn. It was so fun.
It was
It was
the
so
best.
fun.
Yeah.
And we just loved it. We
Yeah.
loved our landlord. We loved where we were. It was super fun just to be close
Mhm.
and in that tight little space together for our first year of marriage.
Mhm.
It was just a blast. And I we do miss those days.
Yeah, for sure.
But every day we were there, we were looking on Zillow, looking for a house. And so it's just important to take a step back,
Mhm.
take it slow, focus on the things that actually need to get done, and life's going to happen along the way.
Yeah, for sure. That's good, baby. This is a touchy subject because we don't have kids yet, but I do wanna put it out there that you can feel ready for kids. I
Hmm.
think so many people all that I hear from culture is, "You'll never be ready, so just have a
Right.
kid." That's fine. I don't think I would recommend that. You will, like, the Lord will give you the strength for whatever season that you're in, and if it's His will, then do it. Absolutely. But I don't think that I would give that advice because and I'm only speaking from our situation, we are getting to a place where we do feel ready, and I can
Hmm.
speak from experience that our first year of marriage, we were not. And yes, again, the Lord would have blessed us, but it would have been a more stressful situation,
Hmm.
like, if we had gotten pregnant or whatever, it would have been like, "Oh, man, like, what are we gonna do?"
Right.
Whereas now I'm like, "Oh, we're getting to a place where we're ready and we're excited and it's gonna be a fun thing." And so I just wanna put that out there that that is possible to feel ready for your first kid. And that's something we prayed for. We're listening to the Lord in this. So again, we're just sharing our advice. This is not like a wrong and right type thing.
Totally.
Um, but yeah, I do think that it can be an exciting thing and something that you can wait until you're ready, and
Hmm.
it will be blessed if you decide to do that either way. But
Absolutely.
for
Absolutely.
us
I think a lot of people say that, meaning like financially.
Yeah.
But those who say it saying like, "Oh, you'll never feel ready,"
Yeah.
I think they're wrong.
Yeah.
Totally think they're wrong.
Yeah, I do too, and I again, like, if we would have gotten pregnant, like, our first year, it would have been scary, but the Lord would have given us strength because it was supposed to happen, and
Totally.
so it would have been a good thing either way. But
Yeah.
I do think that people always say, "Just have a kid. If you're not ready, you'll never be ready." It's like, maybe don't. Maybe just
Mhm.
pray and wait until the Lord tells you because you will feel ready
Yeah.
when the time is right. Um, the next thing I would say that I learned in our marriage and just marriage advice in general is going more into gender roles, which I kind of mentioned earlier and in another episode, but I'm very passionate about it because the society tells us otherwise. The society is mostly wrong, but it's that gender roles are so important. And
Totally.
when you live a life and specifically a marriage that is following the Bible, it is just so much easier. It's so much better and it's so much healthier. It just goes so much better, I've learned, when the man provides, when the wife stays home, has meals ready, and cooks and cleans. I mean, I'm just like a broken record, but
Mhm.
it is something that I've learned, and I think that it just makes life easier. I think a big reason why the divorce rate is 50% and over in this world is because people try so hard to do things in their own power and live their own lives with someone else, and that's not the way it's supposed to work. So many people go into marriage thinking, this is my life. I have my own career, and we're just going to basically live together. And yeah, we're married,
Right.
but they have their own mindset. And I do think that you need to be dependent on each other.
Yeah.
So, the wife needs to submit to the husband and the husband needs to lead, but you're also depending on each other.
Mhm.
It's not just that you're serving the other person and not getting to live. You're more of depending on each other in ways that women can provide in this way, men provide in this way. The wife needs to be able to lean on the husband to be the provider, to be the head of the home, to lead the family. And the husband needs to be able to depend on the wife as a helper and someone who he can lean on emotionally. And there's just strengths between men and women that are completely different. And so when you're married, you have to be able to depend on that person for your weaknesses.
Yeah.
And I think so many marriages are just, like I said before, they go in with it such, this is my life and then I'm going to share it with you. And that really is why it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
You're really not living a life together, one life together. You're
Mhm.
living your own lives separately in the same space.
Yeah, I think the world treats marriage like running an errand. Like, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna pick this thing up on my way to here, you
Yeah.
know? When it's so not. It is like the biggest decision of your life.
Yeah.
The biggest physical decision of your life.
Hmm.
I think the only other decision, period, would be giving your life to Christ.
For sure.
But besides that, marriage, who you're gonna spend the rest of your life with, like the saying, "You are the sum of your 5 best friends." Your spouse is on that list for sure. They have a huge influence on your life. They keep you honest
Hmm.
and they drag you down if they're wrong or
For sure.
bad. So you have to treat that decision with the gravity that it deserves.
Yeah. Specifically for the women, I can't speak as much for the men, but as a wife, just the main thing that I would say is to just learn to submit. So many women expect the man to provide, the man to be the leader. But if you're not in submission to say yes to the decisions that he's wanting to make, he can't make those decisions and he can't lead. It doesn't just come naturally. You have to pray to the Lord to show you, how do I submit? What does that even look like? So many people just think it's not even important, but you can't expect a man to lead if you don't create the atmosphere for him to do it in. And a lot of things like that is very practical. So, just creating a good, healthy space. He needs to be able to live in an environment that creates this atmosphere where he can thrive. And so, he's not going to get that at work. Work is not really a great place in most environments. He needs to be able to come home and relax and debrief so that he can make big decisions. If you're not doing what you know you're supposed to be doing, don't expect him to.
Hmm. Yeah, and I always try to follow up whenever you say submit. I always try to follow that up with what the husband's job is because it says it in the Bible. Where it says in the Bible, wives submit to your husbands, it's immediately followed the very next verse, husbands love your wives as Christ loved the church. Now, if you're familiar with the Bible at all, you know that Christ died for the church. He took on all the sin of the world, all the shame of the world, all the sickness and darkness and death of the world,
Mhm.
all in one horrific death. He took it on willingly. Husbands, I mean, that's your job. you are Christ for your wife. So you have to make sure that you are doing your very, very best at loving her the way Christ loves the church, the way Christ loves her, the way Christ loves you. Sacrificial love, unconditional love. Whether she's doing the things that Courtney was just talking about or not, you are required to be the spiritual leader, the spiritual provider, the protector. You've got to be the rock.
Mhm.
You've got to be what your wife can come to and just say, and just feel safe and feel steady. You can't be shifting and indecisive. You can't be double minded. You've got to know what you're doing, which is why it's so important as the man to be hearing from the Lord, to be seeking the Lord, and to be hearing from the Lord. Because if you don't have direction in your life, then your decisions that you're making from your own logic, we all know that carnal logic is enmity with the spirit. It's the enemy of God's plan because it's just thinking like, oh, well, this sounds good in my head. Well, you don't know what God's thinking in his head, you know? So you've got to make sure that you are hearing from the Lord because once you're married, once you have kids too, like you're not making that decision for yourself. Your actions and decisions carry consequences that don't affect you anymore. They affect your wife, your family. Just think about it like this. As a man, when I hear the word submit, I don't like it. It's hard for me to submit to authority. It's hard for most men to submit to authority. You know, it's hard even to submit to a perfect authority, you know, because we're supposed to submit to God. And that's not always the easiest thing in the world. Sometimes he says, like, you need to be doing this, and you really want to be doing that. And you've got to submit and you've got to say, Lord, not your will, but mine. Imagine having to do that every day to an imperfect God. That would be next to impossible for me. But that's what God has called her to do to me. I am that imperfect God, lowercase g, just as an example. I'm that imperfect person. And she's required by the Bible to submit to me. Unless you're a
Is
narcissist,
that hard for you to say?
it is, yeah.
I know, I can tell.
I don't, it's, this is why I always
Yeah,
hammer this so hard because the world hears
yeah.
submit
Like, "Listen to me."
and they do not hear the second part.
Right.
They've already checked out. That's why I'm being so intentional and so passionate right now because this is huge. Unless your husband is an absolute narcissist who just enjoys this stuff, he knows what it sounds like when the Bible tells you to submit to him. And if he's not giving his best effort, most men know what it sounds like. They feel it in their spirit when they hear the word submit. It's like, oh, no thanks. I'm my own man, you know, self-made man, you know, all that stuff. But we're required to submit to God, and God requires our wives to submit to us. And we are imperfect, so we better make sure we are giving our absolute best effort because that's what our wives deserve. That's what my wife deserves. She deserves my absolute best and nothing less. And if I'm not giving my absolute best, then I don't deserve any effort from her end. Now, it's still required by the Bible for her. Wives, if your husband is not leading, still required by the Bible that you do those things. A husband and a wife relationship is unconditional. Okay, it's not give and take. There's compromise, but in what you're called to do, it's
Mhm,
unconditional. Just like it's required for me to lead, whether or not she's doing her things, it's also required for her to do her things that she's responsible for, whether or not I'm leading like I
mhm.
should be. So it's just really important as a man when I listen to all this and I'm soaking this up and I'm just like, man, that is a lot of responsibility. And I honestly feel like the women have the harder job because they've got to sit back and just be like trusting this imperfect being who's made mistakes his entire life to now all of a sudden make decisions for two people, maybe three or four or five or six or seven people now instead of just one. And that's a huge amount of responsibility. But I think being the woman in that situation would be even harder.
It just solidifies that it's not your role when you think it's harder.
Mm.
Because for me, I definitely think it's harder to lead. I would not want to do that because you
Hmm.
gotta be really confident in your hearing from the Lord, and you're gonna make all the big decisions. But for me, I think that the society, even women specifically, will hear the word submit and they just blow up. They think that it's unwillingly submitting. Like, I don't want to, and I have to submit.
Mm,
It's like, get in your place, which that's the world's way.
right.
But God's way is beautiful and it's enjoyable. I take pride in being able to submit. It's enjoyable because I know that God is at the center. You can't go wrong. And so it's not just Grant making decisions for us. It's him listening to the Lord and me trusting the Lord enough to lead Grant. If you're listening to this and saying submit, like, "Oh, that's so I'll never be able to submit. I hate it." Like, you're just looking at it from the world's way. Just read the Bible. Just read
Mm,
Proverbs 31 and just let the Lord explain to you what the definition is,
yeah.
because and let him show you, because he will. And it's not just, me submitting out of weakness because I have to. I don't see it as I have to. I see it as I get to. And that doesn't mean that we don't talk and have conversations and decide things together.
Totally.
It basically means that at the end of the day, Grant gets to make the final call. But yeah, we've put hours into conversations and talking and learning and growing and praying together. That's a marriage. You don't just sit back and twiddle your thumbs and let the husband tell you where to go.
Yeah.
You have a responsibility to help him and guide him and pray for him. And so when the Lord speaks, then you get to submit to that decision.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
and what I would say to the husbands, this has been my experience. I think most men go one of two ways. Either one, they don't really realize the level of responsibility that's been laid on them the
yeah.
day they get married. And so they don't take it seriously and they go through life willy-nilly making decisions here and there, and their family pays the consequences. And two, which this is me, you see that mountain of responsibility and it's just growing, looming over you the day you get married, and you freeze. And you freeze up and you don't make decisions for fear of being wrong. What I would say to the husbands in that case, because that's been my experience, pray and seek the Lord more than you ever have in your life. And when you feel like you hear from the Lord, don't second guess it and just do it.
Mhm.
And even if it's wrong, you have learned. It's like Michael Jordan said, he never lost a game. Michael Jordan is quoted as saying he never lost a game. He won games and he learned. And that's how I treat this life.
Mhm.
I'm either doing exactly what God wants me to, or I'm learning what not to do. Okay. So what I'd say to the wives here, real quick, be even 50% like my wife, and your husband will be blessed beyond measure.
You're so s
She is so good at just, I mean, she gets it. Okay. She says, like, she sees the responsibility. She knows what I'm trying to do. She sees that I'm being earnest in trying to seek after the Lord. And if I make the wrong decision, then she's the first one to say, "That's all right, baby. We're learning, we're getting where we need to go. It's okay that was the wrong call. At least you made a call."
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
as you do that, the more times you think you hear the Lord and then actually hear the Lord, and then think you hear the Lord and then actually hear the Lord, you just become like that Bible verse where it says, "My sheep know my voice." This is how you learn his voice. You pray earnestly, you seek after him, and when you think you hear his voice, follow that direction. Now, obviously, there's some checks and balances here. If it goes against scripture, it's not his voice.
Mhm.
If it's blatantly wrong, it's not his voice. But sometimes it won't be logical and it'll still be his voice.
Mhm.
So, what's important is that you are seeking and acting.
Yeah.
Don't seek the Lord for weeks on end and not make a decision. He's always speaking. And so you're probably hearing and then second guessing that voice, like, oh, it was in my head. That was just me. And I almost feel like the longer I pray, the worse that gets, because it feels like this decision is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the deadline is closer and closer and closer.
Mhm.
And I've got 18 different answers in my head. And I don't know which one was the Lord's, because I've let myself think about it too long. Usually, if I will just pray, maybe fast, get in the word, seek his face, it's the first one that I hear
Mhm.
is the Lord, because I've silenced my flesh.
Yeah.
And it's the first one that I hear, and it's not an audible booming voice from heaven. It's that still small voice.
That's good.
And it just says, do this. Go there. Buy that. And that's it. That's all you got to do. So, to the husbands, either A, realize the responsibility that you have and take it seriously. Or B, do not be terrified of your responsibility and act. And to the wives, grace,
Yeah,
because it's a lot of responsibility.
it
Just
is.
just give him grace. If he's not seeking,
Mhm.
pray for him. If he is seeking and he made the wrong call, encourage him.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
And, leading and being a man is making a decision, not making the right decision. It doesn't have to be the right thing because that's just being human. Everyone makes mistakes. Just like as the wife, you're supposed to be the homemaker, cook a meal. It doesn't have to be a 10 out of 10, the best meal he's ever had, but at least you did it. You're
It
still
usually is though.
fulfilling. You're
It
so sweet.
usually is.
You're still fulfilling your role. So you can't just say, I don't know how to cook. And so you don't cook. You're not fulfilling your role. Learn how to cook, learn how to lead.
Mhm.
Everyone can learn. You're leading the home and you're making a decision. But yeah, that leads me to one little thing I have to say in every episode when people say, like, well, I don't know how to cook. So it doesn't apply to me, whatever. Learn how to cook. If
Mhm.
you're a woman, if you're a wife, if you're a mom, learn to cook.
Yeah.
I hate when people say, "I don't know how to do it," or "I'm not good at it." Learn. It's a skill. It's not something that just comes naturally. I say it all the time, but, like, didn't just, like, as a 4-year-old know how to make recipes. You have to learn,
You
you
didn't know how
know?
to walk when you were 1 either. You learned that. It's a
Yeah.
skill, like you're saying, you can learn.
Exactly. Your husband deserves it. He does not want to come home after a full day of work and have to worry about dinner. You should learn how to put a meal on the table. Time management is just your husband deserves that. Whether he acts like it or not, as a man, he deserves it. You are representing, you're doing this for the Lord, not necessarily for your husband. You're being a wife, you're submitting, you're doing your roles that the Lord put in the Bible for us to mimic, for us to do. So you really should be doing it for the Lord. If your husband doesn't deserve it, the Lord does. So just keep that in mind. But
Well, thank you for saying that, baby.
I
That's
always have
nice.
to stick it in there
Yeah.
because everyone says, well, I don't know how to cook. I can't follow a recipe. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It drives me crazy.
Mhm. Going into my next point, just kind of transitioning from realizing how important this decision of being married is and realizing how much influence your life partner has on your life. I think one thing that is really important, and we did practice this before we got married, but I think we didn't even realize then how important it was to have the really important decisions before you get married. Have those before you get engaged,
That's so true.
first year of dating, you need to have all the macro issues nailed down. You've
Mhm.
got to have religion, denomination, and politics down.
Mhm.
That's what I think. Those three, the bare minimum.
For
And
sure.
if you don't agree, you probably shouldn't get married. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying you probably shouldn't because you're setting yourself kind of for failure. There's going to be roadblocks every step of the way. Every 4 years, if it's political, every 4 years there's a fight, a big fight, and then every decision that person makes there's a fight and it's just not really very smart to disagree on the big issues.
Mhm. And also, it politics does go into the Bible, biblical
Totally.
reasons. A lot of people say, "Oh, you can't mix the Bible and politics." Well, you can. And so if your political views are not lining up, it's probably going to leak into your religion, your biblical beliefs as well. And that's just the foundation of your marriage. So if you're not in agreement there, you will have struggles. It's not a maybe, it's not a like, "Well, we can do this." It's you're going to have a lot of problems. And so you really do need to have those conversations before you get engaged and just see where the person is, where their head is at.
Yeah.
So I agree. You're so cute.
Thank you.
You get tired of me saying that, baby.
No, I just don't know how to answer it.
Our case was very different. A lot of relationships when you get married young, it's like you were probably friends. You're most likely like you grew up together, high school sweethearts, have
Right.
known each other since whatever, but we met when we were 18. I didn't
Yeah.
know his family, he was from across the country. We did not have any of the same circle. We were very much strangers and we met and then 2 weeks later we were dating girlfriend, boyfriend, and we were 18. We had just turned 18 that summer and we met in October. We were long distance for a long time. It was a lot harder for us, I think, to have those conversations because we were so young, but we also didn't want to date for, 5 years and then get married. So we were in a kind of a difficult place because we had to have those conversations, but we didn't really know how to. but, we figured it out. The Lord had grace on us. We were following the Lord. So ultimately, it will always work out. Just follow the Lord.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were able to decide, make the decisions, and talk about it before we got engaged so that nothing was really like a huge surprise.
Right.
And we always like to talk about things a lot before we're in that situation. For instance, kids, we've already mentioned that, but we talk a lot about parenting, what we're going to do. I love to ask Grant like his opinion on things because a lot of times you don't know what your spouse is going to do until you're in that situation. So I always like to ask, just see where their head is at. What can I expect? And then
Right.
talk about it before you're in that situation so that it's not an argument. You're more so just figuring it out. If
Yeah.
you see a kid crying in public in a restaurant, and we're just sitting there eating, it's like, what would you do in this situation? Do you think you should take the kid out? Do you think it's everybody else's fault for judging? Like just little questions like that, real life things that you can ask, like, what would you do? And the more and more you do that, the less surprises there are and the least opportunities there are for arguments later down the road when you're actually in that situation. Because, like,
Totally.
if we had our kid at the restaurant, they're crying. It's like, what are you going to do? Like, it's just all new. And so, little things like that really are helpful to just talk about it before it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to be proactive, or
Yeah.
else you're always playing defense
Yeah.
on every issue,
Yeah.
whether that's politics, religion, denomination, kids,
Hmm.
where you're going to live, your hobbies, your everything. Even after you get married, finding time to have conversations is super beneficial.
For
Like,
sure.
not just like, how was your day? Like, find a time where you're maybe not even on your date night.
Yeah.
Find a time where you're able to talk about the heavy stuff for like an hour, almost like recording a podcast.
Hmm.
The only reason I say this is because I've seen how beneficial this podcast has been for us.
For
I
sure.
mean, this is like 16 or 17 discussions, hour-long discussions that I don't think would have happened otherwise.
Yeah.
So, if you can find time to do that in your marriage, just start talking and you'll find things to talk about. Start talking about the
Yeah.
Bible, about your church, about your job, about kids. Things will just come out
Hmm.
and you'll learn so much about your spouse, you'll learn about yourself, and you'll know what to expect when that situation
Hmm.
comes up in your own life. A huge thing in marriage is conflict management. How you handle conflict with your spouse.
Hmm.
The biggest mistake that you can make
Yeah.
is like, "Oh, I'll just give her time, and then apologize in the morning."
Hmm.
That's not smart. There's something about going into the next day that just solidifies it as like that whole day was a problem. It
Hmm.
wasn't like we had a problem, we solved it, and that was the day. It was like that whole day was a problem, and now we have to solve it today. And it's the next day.
Yeah.
There's something to that. I truly feel like the longer you go between conflict and apology is exactly related to how much resentment can be built up in your spouse.
Mhm.
Obviously, that's just depending on the situation and the conflict, but you don't want to give the devil that much time to be in your spouse's ear saying,
Yeah.
"Can you believe he said that? Can you believe she did this?" You've got to realize that the devil truly is a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. And there is nothing that the devil hates like a young, prospering Christian marriage. He is waiting for an opportunity. And if you let 12 hours go between your wife and your conflict and your apology, that's 12 hours of free time that the devil is just in her ear,
Yeah.
and probably in your ear too, saying you did nothing wrong, all this stuff, and just apologize. As the man of the house,
Hmm.
it is your job, truthfully, whether it is your fault or not, it is your job to handle conflict like that and solve it. And it's not easy, but it is your job. So, two things that I'll say: time cannot be your answer for conflict. You can't just give it time. It's not easy at all, but it is your job as the man to handle conflict. Make sure that you and your wife are on the same page.
Yeah, and I think something that's so different, again, the society says like, "Oh, well, what do you do when you get in fights and when you get in arguments? Like, how do you fix?" We don't like to say we're not in fights. We don't fight.
Right.
Boxers fight. Like
Right.
we're not in this competition of like I'm right and you're wrong. We always like to say like this is the problem and how are we going to fix it?
Yeah.
We talk about it. We don't yell and throw things and fight. We're not fighting.
Yep.
So I think that that's also different is to just, we don't do that. That's what kids do. Kids fight, kids argue. Um, we like to talk about it. We're going to discuss this. This is what we disagree on. How are we going to, and I always like to say, how are we going to fix this? How are we going to compromise here? And we talk about it. You're going to have disagreements because you're two different people, you're opposites, but we never come to it, we're fighting and who's going to win.
Right.
We don't, I won this argument. Like, I hate
Yeah.
that. And we just don't do it. So it's very worldly to do that. You have to realize who your enemy is. It's never your spouse. If you think it's your spouse, then I think that's probably why you argue a lot. You're never arguing or fighting against your spouse.
Yep.
It's the enemy. It's the enemy working through them, and maybe they gave in. It's the enemy putting that thought in their mind. Maybe they said it out loud. It's never actually your spouse. And the sooner you realize that, I think the sooner the arguments will kind of die down once you both realize we're not fighting each other. Actually, our enemy is the devil.
Yeah.
If you're especially a Christian married couple, it's never going to be your spouse, you know?
Yeah. Another thing too that both of us think is pretty important is just like with time, not using time as your answer to conflict. You can't use space. You can't say I'm going for a drive. You can't say, "Oh, I'm going to go stay at my mom's." Like that's just not smart. And as hard as it is and as hard as it feels, you've got to fix conflict within the marriage between you and your spouse and God.
Mhm.
Honestly, those are my two biggest things with conflict management, and I think yours as well.
Mhm.
Space and time are never the answer.
Yeah.
They just, the same way that time builds resentment, space will too. And you start getting comfortable being away from that person. And then when you're back with them, you think about the argument or the fight or the disagreement, and it just breeds all sorts of issues, all sorts of
Mhm.
fighting, all sorts of resentment. And it's just not smart.
Yeah. Yeah, if space is the resolution, then I think that's the issue. Like, if you have to
Mhm.
take space in order to heal or to forgive, then that's probably it's a dangerous spot to be in because then you just realize being alone, being by yourself, like that's what really fixed the problem instead of being able to face the issue head on with your spouse. So I think space a lot of times can just create this dependence on like yourself. A marriage, it's difficult because you're trying to fix things together when you don't necessarily agree on something. If the issue is with someone else, you need to be able to fix it with someone else. That's where the enemy works on you the most is when you're alone, like from your spouse. Because then the enemy is going to say like, "Yeah, isn't this so much nicer? Like, isn't this, this is what you needed. You just need to get away. Like he's just too much or she's too much." Um you just need some time by yourself. Like that's really where the enemy starts to get a foothold, I think. And so if you can just, like Grant said, not put that space between you, literally just don't leave the room until you have a common ground and you've understood each other. And again, realizing who your enemy is. It's not each other, it's the enemy
Mhm.
or it's the devil. That's the best advice I think I can give. And then like you were saying too, like don't go to your parents' house. Don't go to somebody else for validation or like
Oh,
hear me
yeah.
out on this. Because I think that's the worst thing you can do
Mhm.
is like going to your friends and like talking about your spouse in that way and like can you believe he did this or she did this? Like am I right in this area? That's the worst thing you can do because it just puts a wall up between you and your spouse.
Totally.
And don't go to your girlfriends, like, especially girlfriends have the tendency to feel validated. They need someone else to agree with them to feel good, and it's so dangerous. You should not be going to your girlfriends for advice or for just to get something off your chest. Those issues or whatever disagreements you're having is only meant for your spouse, and if you're gonna invite other people in to even talk about it, then they're a part of your marriage.
Mhm.
It's like, essentially, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, it's very unhealthy, I would not recommend that, we've never really done that, but I think that's just something that's I see a lot in society, like, I just hear so many people, so many girls especially, women, just talking so much about their spouse and the arguments that they had, and it's just like a free for all for everyone to just badmouth their husbands really, and
Right.
their spouses in general, it's not just but I can only speak to the women because 'cause I've heard it, and I've never been able to participate, like, I will never sit there. First of all, I don't agree, but second of all, even if I did, I could not sit there and just trash my husband, you know,
Mhm.
like for fun. I think that's just something you need to remember is to just not go to other people or your girlfriends for validation.
Yeah. It's such a great point. I was talking about, like, going to your parents' place for space. I
Mm,
didn't even think about it, like, for validation.
yeah,
But totally, don't take your problems to
yeah,
somebody else. I mean, there might be a select case where if it's a really big deal and you can't fix it between, like, you physically can't fix it between the 2 of you and God, maybe you go to your pastor and his wife. But I'm even hesitant to say that. Like,
yeah,
you really need to keep your business to yourself and fix it between yourselves as much as possible. And, you were saying you could only speak to the women. I can speak to guys. They do the exact same thing.
yeah,
I mean, just talking so much trash about their spouses, and
mhm,
they'll say they'll say things, "Oh, like, I love her," but they're having to, like, convince me of that because of the
mhm.
stuff that they say, you know?
It's horrible.
It's so not right. You can't hate your spouse. I
Yeah,
mean, why'd you marry him, you know? Why'd you
exactly.
get married?
Yeah, that brings me into my next point is like it's not cool to hate your spouse. That's
Yeah,
literally an entire topic that I am so passionate about
for sure.
because work is the worst place for it. And I'm so glad that we're not at like a physical place
Oh, me
anymore
too.
because that's all that you hear. And everyone just chimes in together in like guess what my husband did?
Mhm.
Guess what my wife did? It's like I don't wanna hear what you were arguing about last night over dinner. I don't
Right.
wanna hear why you slept in separate rooms. I don't That's not cool, and it's not cool to badmouth them. Like, this society just thinks it's so cool to say, like, "Oh, my husband, he does this, he does that." It's like, what do you want me to say?
Right.
Because I'm not gonna agree. I
Right.
can't relate, thank the Lord.
Mhm.
And again, even if I did, I would not be telling you. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's such a terrible dynamic too, because
Mhm.
I mean, you've got the other husbands agreeing husbands in my case,
Yeah.
you get the single guy like, "Oh, I can't relate, man. That's why
Yeah.
I'm single," women, all that
Yeah.
just bad-mouthing not even wives, not
Yeah.
even their specific wives, but just women in general. It's just
Mhm.
it's just not it's just you just don't do that.
Yeah, I've been in circles with married couples. They talk so bad about their spouse that the single people don't even want to get married because
Yeah,
it sounds so bad.
yeah,
Like, "Can you believe my wife did this?" And, "Can you believe?" And, "I wish I was single because those were the days." And, like, it's not supposed to be that way. Like, if you really hate your spouse that much, why did you get married? That would be a biggest piece of advice is always take every opportunity that you can to uplift your spouse, even when they're not in the room. Annoy people with how highly you talk about your spouse.
mhm,
Just be annoying about it.
yeah.
You know, it's such a compliment to the Lord.
Yeah, totally.
But
Take every opportunity when your coworker says, "I can't believe my wife did this, did that, did whatever." Man,
can't
that's
relate.
that's rough. I can't relate. My wife
Yeah.
is amazing,
Oh.
and just say the exact opposite.
Yeah, I think that's everything we have though. With our 4 years of
Yeah,
marriage, that's like we could probably talk about this for another 2 hours, but I think that's just kind of
yeah.
surface level.
Just to wrap up my points in the last little bit, just about conflict management. Number 1, don't let the sun go down in your wrath. Number 2, space and time are never the answer. Number 3, it's always the devil and not your spouse.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty much it. If you can remember those 3 things within conflict management, it will drastically help you and your spouse, especially if you're both on the same page. Because the truth is, you are on the same team, even
Yeah.
when it doesn't feel like it. So if you can get on that same page, you can stay on that mindset and you just do the very best that you can
Mhm.
for your spouse. That's all we got, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Counterculture Podcast. We post every Monday morning at 6 a.m. on Spotify and YouTube. We also post short form content on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. And with that, we're out of here, guys. We'll see y'all in the next one.
Bye, guys.
Bye.